Okay, next we're going to enter the code for the DrawSprites method. Now, if you recall, the DrawSprites method is called between the sprite batch begin and sprite batch end lines in the draw. So really all this needs to do is include the lines for whatever gets drawn at any particular time in the game. Now, this is either going to be the bomb, which is an image that we call boom, or it's going to be all of the particle sprites of the particle system for the explosion. And we're going to use a for each loop for that. Now, we're going to put a little bit of extra code in here that has to do with the already pressed variable. And what that's going to do is, as we loop through the particles, it's going to test to see if any of them are still active. And if any of them are active, it's going to set the already pressed to be active. Now, what's going to happen is, before it goes through that loop, it's going to set already pressed to be false. So already pressed gets set to be false, and then it goes through the loop, and if it finds any of them that are active, it sets already pressed to true. So this is kind of like what we did with some buttons in other places in chapters long ago, where we set them to false, but then if the button was pressed, we reset the Boolean variable to true. So it's a very common technique, and as we write the code, it'll be easier to see than me just explaining it. So let's get going here. So we'll get rid of this throw new not implemented line. There it goes. Okay, so first thing we need to do is have a test for already pressed. So if already pressed is equal to true, we're going to draw out the particles. So we're going to first set already pressed to false. That's what we said. Okay, we're going to assume that there are no particles that are active, but then if they are, we'll turn already pressed back to true. So we're going to do this for each, which takes us through all of the objects. So for each particle sprite, and we're going to call these particle, and we could call them rutabaga, in our particle sprite array, and open curly, if particle dot active, and remember at this point particle is just the variable that's standing in for each particle as we go through them. So when we find one that's active, actually each time we find one that's active, we're going to draw it, and then we're going to set the already pressed equal to true. That says, okay, there's at least one particle out there. So sprite batch dot draw and particle dot image, that's our 2D texture, and particle dot position. Now there are 7 different sprite batch dot draw variations, and usually we've used one that just has the image, the position, and the color, which we set to white. We're going to do this a little bit differently here. We're going to use one of the more involved ones so that we can get a few more variables in here. We have our color variable, which is used to actually increase the transparency over time. We have our scale, which is used to make the particle image slightly larger over time. And we just have to find one of these 7 different flavors of the sprite batch.draw that includes those. And it'll have some other things that we don't really need, and there'll be values that you can set those to, null or none, or just something that really doesn't have an effect. So there is what we're going to do for that one. You see the values. And so the way this will work as you're working on your own projects in the future is you'll say, okay, for this draw I need to be able to control this, 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 and this, different parameters. And you'll look through the available versions that there are and say, okay, the only one that has those has these also, so we're just going to figure out what to do with those so that they don't impact it and get the ones that we need. So, that's just, it'd be nice if there were versions that could do every specific thing, but, you have what you have and you make do. And generally, it's not a problem. Okay, now there's one more thing I'm noticing. If you look on the for each line, there's a red underline under particle sprite, and that's because I've made an error here. That first particle sprite is got to be the class name, not our array. So it needs a capital P. So let's just right now, as we're noticing this, go up and take care of it. So there we go, capital P, okay. Red squiggles go away. Okay, so now we can continue on here, and we've got our next thing we're going to do, remember, is if we found that a particle was active, we set already pressed equal to true, semicolon, closing curly, and then closing curly on the for each, and then we need one more closing curly on the if already pressed. Now that takes care of drawing the particles, but what if it's not? What if the particle system isn't active? Then we have this else case here, spritebatch.draw, and here's where we just draw the bomb. So this is going to be a much more conventional draw here with just our 3 parameters that we've had up to now. So we have boom, which is the texture 2D, boom pause, which is the position, and color.white, since there's no tinting, close parens, semicolon, and then we're going to call this reset sprites again here, and there's maybe more elegant ways we could do this, but this will work. So the sprites for sure will be reset. So that's it. That's good. That's everything we need. We'll save it. And that's it for DrawSprites.